I was standing on the Jackson Station platform, one arm holding Miles tightly against my chest, the other gripping the worn strap of my old bag, when I heard a familiar voice behind me. "Amara? Amara Hayes, is that you?" My heart dropped straight into my chest. I turned around and froze. It was my father, Vernon. The man I had deliberately avoided for almost 2 months. The one I always rushed off the phone, with excuses being busy, exhausted, buried in work. The man I knew would understand everything the moment he looked at me like this. He was standing right in front of me. I knew it only took one look into his eyes for him to see it all. He saw the thin, padded jacket I was wearing, so old that the side pocket was torn, the stitching coming apart without even trying to hide it. He saw the cheap boots I'd rushed to buy online, their soles so thin that every gust of wind across the platform sent cold straight into my feet. He saw Miles in a winter outfit that was clearly too small, the sleeves riding up and exposing his thin wrists. And more than anything, he saw me. My hollowed face, the dark circles under my eyes, my gray, sleepless skin, my hands trembling not from the cold, but from exhaustion and fear. I tried to smile. "Dad." But my lips betrayed me. They shook uncontrollably. My father stepped closer, his eyes scanning me from head to toe, slowly, heavily. I had never seen that look on his face before. Not anger, not blame, but something deeper, raw concern, mixed with something that looked a lot like pain. "Why are you at the train station?" he asked, his voice lowering. "Where's your car? The new Kia I bought you for your birthday last year?" I turned my face away. I sold it." "Sold it?" He frowned. "Sold it for what?" I swallowed hard. My throat burned. "I needed money." The air between us thickened. "Money for what, Amara?" His voice tightened, harder now. "You look completely drained. Why haven't you been answering my calls? And where is Darnell?" That last question was like a knife hitting the weakest spot. 2 months. For 2 months, I had forced myself to endure it. 2 months of swallowing tears, obeying demands, handing over money, staying silent through insults, living in constant fear. But standing in front of my father now, I knew I couldn't hold it together anymore. "If you don't mind," I whispered, "can we find somewhere more private?" He didn't ask anything else, just nodded. We walked into a small cafe in the corner of the station. Soft yellow lights, warm air, completely opposite to the cold outside. My father sat Miles down, ordered him a glass of apple juice and a big cookie. Miles smiled brightly, completely unaware that his mother's world was on the edge of collapse. My father sat across from me. He reached out and took my hand. His hand was warm, steady, familiar, so familiar I almost broke down. "Tell me," he said softly, "everything." And I did. I told him about the days after Miles was born, about how my mother-in-law, Loretta Jenkins, started coming over more and more. At first, advice, then unsolicited suggestions, then orders wrapped in the words for the family. I told him about the 2-bedroom condo downtown, the only thing my grandmother had left me. The property was in my name, my last safety net, the one thing I believed no one could touch. Until Loretta found out. She started saying I should transfer the condo into Miles' name for his future. I refused. I told her it was my grandmother's legacy, that I wanted to manage it myself, make my own decisions. And from that moment, everything changed. I looked up. My father was still silent, but his grip on my hand tightened. "1 week after you refused," he said slowly, "I was attacked near my house, wasn't I?" I flinched. I remember that night. "You said it was random thugs." I nodded, tears spilling over. "It wasn't random, Dad." My voice shook. The next day, Loretta came to my place. She sat down, drank tea, smiled, and said, "How is your father these days? Older people tend to have accidents. Next time could be worse." I saw my father's face go pale. She smiled when she said it. "Dad." The silence was thick, heavy, and I understood that right there, on the Jackson Station platform, my life had already changed direction, because the secret I had been hiding for 2 months had finally been spoken. And once the truth is spoken, it no longer belongs to fear. It becomes a story, a fight. If you've ever had a moment when you didn't want your loved ones to see you at your weakest, stay with this story. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss the real-life stories shared every day. And please comment to tell me which city or country you're watching from. I truly want to know where you are as you listen. My father didn't interrupt. He just sat there, still holding my hand, as if afraid that letting go for even a second would make me fall apart. The yellow cafe lights revealed the wrinkles at the corners of his eyes, lines I had never really noticed before. I suddenly realized how long I had avoided him. "What happened next?" he asked quietly. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. My throat burned. But once I started again, the words poured out like a broken dam. "After that, I started living in real fear," I said. "Loretta didn't even need to come to my house anymore. She just sent texts. Every message felt like a warning. I told him about the late-night calls, her fake sweet voice on the other end. Messages like, 'You should think again, Amara, for your son,' or, 'CPS takes a close interest in mothers who lose their temper.'" My father frowned. "CPS?" I nodded, tears dripping onto my hand. "She has a video," I whispered. "Of me, with Miles." I felt my father's grip tighten. "What kind of video?" "Edited, Dad," I choked. "They took different clips and stitched them together so it looks like I'm screaming at him, shaking him, saying horrible things. Anyone who sees it would think I'm a terrible mother. Loretta said if I didn't sign the condo over, she'd send it to Child Protective Services." I broke down completely. "You don't understand. If CPS knocks on the door, even an investigation, Miles could be taken away. Just one suspicion is enough." I was so scared I couldn't sleep. Every knock made my heart stop. My father swore under his breath. I rarely heard him do that, which made me shake even more. "There's more," I whispered. "She also forged my financial records at work, used her connections to get copies, altered the numbers, forged signatures. They look real. She said if I didn't cooperate, she'd send them to my boss and the police. I'd lose my job. It'd be investigated. And then, Miles would definitely be taken." I looked up at him. "Do you understand? I was trapped. If I fought back, I'd lose my son. If I stayed silent, I lost everything else." The cafe seemed to freeze. A spoon clinking against a cup nearby sounded painfully loud. Miles sat at the corner of the table, chewing his cookie and swinging his legs, completely carefree. I looked at my son and felt my heart twist in pain. "What about Darnell?" my father asked, his voice turning cold. I let out a bitter laugh. "He took his mother's side. Completely. He said I should be grateful they hadn't made things worse. Every payday, he took my bank card, withdrew all the money, and handed it to Loretta. They left me and Miles $75 a week. For everything. Food, bus fare, daycare." I lowered my head. "I sold the car because they told me to. Sold it $4,000 under its real value. Loretta took it all. She said it was a down payment for my silence." My father closed his eyes and took a deep breath. His jaw tightened as if he were holding something violent back. "And they forbid me from telling anyone," I continued. "Especially you and Mom. They said if they found out I talked, next time you wouldn't just be attacked. Loretta even mentioned her brother, Preston, has been to prison. She said he has people who can handle any problem." I covered my face. I was so scared. I stopped being myself. I just survived day by day. No new clothes. I didn't dare eat enough. Sometimes I had to borrow money from coworkers just to buy milk for Miles. My father stood up and walked to the window, turning his back to me. He stood there for a long time. Watching his back, my fear didn't ease after telling the truth. It grew. Because now, if Loretta found out I had told him everything, things could get even worse. "Dad," I whispered, "what do I do now? What if she finds out I told you?" My father turned around. His eyes were different now. No longer just worried. They were sharp, alert, and frighteningly cold. "Amara," he said slowly, "there are things you don't know about your father." I looked up, confused. "What do you mean?" "You know I served in the military for 20 years, he said, "but you don't know exactly what I did." I shook my head. "I was Special Forces. Military intelligence. He looked straight into my eyes, gathering information, analyzing threats, exposing people who think they can't be touched. My mouth fell open. The man who fixed appliances at home, who told jokes to his grandson, spoke those words calmly. I never retired from those skills, he continued. I just changed how I use them. And those people, Loretta Jenkins and her brother, they picked the wrong family. My heart raced. What are you going to do? He stepped closer and put his hand on my shoulder. I'm going to end this. But to do that, you have to trust me. And you have to keep acting like they still control you. I swallowed. For how long? A few weeks, maybe a month. During that time, you can't change anything. They have to believe you're completely broken. Fear rose inside me, but beneath it, for the first time in 2 months, something else appeared. A very small light. Hope. I looked at Miles, then at my father, and I nodded. I can do it. He nodded back. Good. You're not alone anymore. If you've ever had to stay silent out of fear, just to protect your child, please stay with this story. Don't forget to subscribe to continue following these deeply emotional real-life stories. And comment to tell me which city or country you're watching from. I want to know where you are as you listen. When my father said that, they picked the wrong family, I suddenly realized something bitter. Everything that had happened, all the fear, humiliation, and despair, had started with a house. A 2-bedroom condo in the center of the city. Not big, not luxurious, but the most precious thing I had. It was my grandmother's condo. I grew up in that condo. I remember the smell of apple pie she baked every Sunday afternoon, the old armchair by the window where she sat reading the newspaper, the way she called my name every morning in that warm, low voice. When she passed away, the condo was left to me in her will. Clearly, properly, in my name, and mine alone. It wasn't just property. It was a legacy. A memory. The last support that made me believe that no matter how hard life got, I still had a foundation to stand on. Until Loretta Jenkins found out. At first, everything seemed normal. After Miles was born, my mother-in-law started visiting more often. In the beginning, I was even grateful. She brought food, brought clothes for the baby, gave advice about caring for a newborn. I thought maybe she was just a slightly over-involved grandmother, but not malicious. Then the tone of her words began to change. Amara, have you thought about Mila's future? You know, a boy needs a foundation, assets in his name. What kind of in-laws wouldn't worry about their grandson? I listened. I nodded, but I didn't see anything to worry about. Miles was still so little, and that condo was mine. I had never thought anyone would touch it. One afternoon, while I was cleaning up the kitchen, Loretta sat at the table, took a sip of tea, and asked very gently, "Do you still have the papers for your grandmother's condo?" That question made me pause. "Yes," I answered. "I keep them safe." "Ah," she nodded. "I was just thinking, maybe you should transfer it into Mila's name. For the boy's future. You're not planning to sell it anyway, right?" I turned to look at her. "I haven't thought about that. And besides, it's my grandmother's legacy. I want to manage it myself." The air in the room suddenly cooled by a beat. Loretta set her teacup down, softly. But I still heard the clink. "You live with my son," she said, her voice still gentle. "Family belongs to everyone. Assets should belong to everyone too." I tried to stay calm. "I understand what you mean, but that home was left to me personally by my grandmother. I don't think transferring it right now is appropriate." The smile on Loretta's lips thinned. "You're young," she said. "You don't understand everything yet. In a family, you have to know how to sacrifice." I didn't answer. I felt something was off, but I still couldn't imagine the nightmare closing in. In the days that followed, Loretta stopped coming to my place, but she started calling, texting. At first, it was advice. Then, it became instructions. "You should reconsider. I'm only telling you this for your own good. Don't let things get complicated." I refused politely. I said I needed time. I said I wasn't ready. And then, her attitude changed completely. Her voice wasn't sweet anymore. The messages weren't suggestions. They became short, sharp, and cold. "You're making things hard for this family. I don't like being told no. Do you think you're stronger than me? I started losing sleep. Every text made my heart pound, but I still tried to believe it would pass, that this was just a normal family conflict, until the night my father was attacked. After that, Loretta came to my place. She sat down in the old armchair, the chair that had belonged to my grandmother, and drank tea as if this was her home. You see, she said lightly, this world is very dangerous, especially for old people. I understood immediately, and from that moment on, I knew. The condo was no longer their only target. It had become the excuse to control me, threaten me, destroy me. The excuse to turn me into someone who lived in fear, ready to sign a piece of paper just to end the pain. When I got to that part, my father let out a very quiet sigh. They don't need the house, he said. They need power. And you were the perfect target. I closed my eyes. For the first time, I understood that I wasn't only fighting to keep an asset. I was fighting to keep my right to be a person, my right to decide my own life. And refusing to sign the condo over was my very first act of resistance, even though I had no idea it would lead me into a nightmare that long. If you've ever been pressured to sacrifice your property, your dignity, or your freedom just because of the word family, stay with this story. Don't forget to subscribe to keep following these deeply emotional real-life stories, and comment to tell me which city or country you're watching from. I want to know where you are as you listen. Hello, I'm delighted to assist you with our voice services. Choose a voice that resonates with you, and let's begin our creative audio journey together. I read every line with the feeling that someone was squeezing my chest. Every time my phone buzzed, I jumped. Every time the doorbell rang, I froze for a few seconds before I dared to move. Then came the video. Darnell handed me his phone one evening after Miles had fallen asleep. He didn't look at me as he pressed play. On the screen was me in the kitchen, Miles crying. I was speaking loudly, a moment of exhaustion, when I lost patience after a long day. But the video didn't stop there. It jumped, cut, spliced, replayed. It stitched separate words into something terrifying. I watched and couldn't breathe. This is fake, I whispered. They edited it. Darnell shrugged. No one would know from looking. Loretta called right after. You've seen it, haven't you? Her voice was gentle in a way that made my skin crawl. Child Protective Services is very strict with mothers who lose control. All it takes is one report, you understand. I collapsed into a chair, feeling like the blood had drained out of me. CPS. Those 3 letters were like a sentence hanging over my head. I had read too many stories about children being taken from their mothers because of one video, one accusation, one suspicion. And Loretta knew that. Before I could even recover, the next blow arrived. One morning at work, I received an anonymous email. Attached were financial documents with my name on them, numbers altered, a signature that looked exactly like mine, but I knew I had never signed. The changes made it look like I had been stealing. I called Loretta. My hands shook so badly, I almost dropped the phone. You got it, didn't you? She asked. I just wanted to remind you. Your boss and the police would be very interested in those documents too. I don't want you to get into trouble. You just need to cooperate. I hung up and ran to the bathroom, dry heaving. There was nothing in my stomach, but my body reacted like it had been poisoned. I pressed my forehead to the wall and tried to breathe. From that moment, they started tightening everything. On payday, Darnell took my bank card. He withdrew all the money and handed it to his mother. I was allowed to keep only $75 a week. $75 for everything. Food, the bus, daycare, milk for Miles. That's more than enough, Loretta said. You need to learn to live modestly. I stopped buying clothes for myself. I wore my old things again. I bought Miles clothes from the cheapest sites, praying they would be warm enough. Some days I didn't eat so he could. Some nights I sat in the dark kitchen, counting coins, wondering how much longer I could hold on. The car was next. Sell it, Loretta said flatly. You don't need your own car. Get used to the train. I sold the Kia for $4,000 less than market value. I didn't have the right to negotiate. The money went straight into Loretta's hands. She smiled, satisfied, and said it was the first payment for my silence. I began living like a shadow. And then, the final hit, the one that truly broke me. One afternoon, when I took Miles to daycare, I saw two men standing across the street. They didn't do anything, just stood there, smoking, watching the gate. When I looked over, one of them smiled. My heart tightened. That night, Loretta texted, "I just want to make sure you understand. Next time, they could step inside." I sat on the bed, holding Miles as he slept, and shook uncontrollably. That wasn't a threat anymore. It was a promise. I understood that I had crossed an invisible line, from family conflict to organized violence, from toxic words to daily psychological terror. I was no longer the Amara I used to be. I became someone who always bowed her head, always feared, always calculated every move to avoid upsetting them. And inside that fear, a terrifying thought began to creep in. Maybe signing the papers was the only way to end it. When I got to that point, I stopped. I couldn't bring myself to look at my father, because I knew this was the moment I had almost completely collapsed. If you're listening and these fears feel familiar, please remember, it is not your fault. Don't forget to subscribe to keep following this story and other journeys of surviving family violence. And comment to tell me which city or country you're watching from. I read every comment and am here with you. There are fears that don't make you scream. They make you silent. After that, I stopped resisting. No arguing. No asking why. I learned to nod at every demand, to answer briefly, to make myself invisible. I did exactly what they wanted, because every time I resisted, even with a single question, there was a new punishment. 2 months passed like that. 2 months so long I couldn't even remember what a normal day felt like. In the morning, I woke up before Miles stirred. I sat on the edge of the bed, looked at his tiny feet sticking out from under the blanket, and told myself, I have to endure today. Just today. Every day. I told myself that I ate less. Not because I wanted to lose weight, but because there wasn't enough money. Some days I drank 1 week coffee and went to work. At lunch, I told coworkers I wasn't hungry. The little money I had to go to Miles for milk, for meals at daycare, for bus fare. I started calculating every dollar. Every time I stepped into a supermarket, I stood there with an empty basket for a long time, comparing prices item by item. I chose the cheapest thing, even when I knew it wasn't good. I hated that feeling, the feeling of having to choose between this and that for my child. Nights were the worst. When Miles was asleep, the apartment fell silent, and everything I had forced down all day rose to the surface. I lay in the dark, eyes wide open, listening for every small sound. Every footstep in the hallway, every elevator door closing, made my heart pound. I began to fear my phone, fear texts, fear even calls from unknown numbers. I put my phone on silent, then panicked about missing something important. That feeling, always tense, always on guard, wore me down piece by piece. Darnell changed. Or maybe he had always been like this, and I had never seen it clearly. He became cold, distant. Every time I asked about money, he frowned and called me ungrateful. Every time I looked exhausted, he reminded me, my mother hasn't even done anything that harsh. I started believing I truly had no other choice. One evening, Loretta called me. Her voice was calm, like she was talking about the weather. "So, how far have you gotten with your decision?" I stayed silent. "I don't want to drag this out," she continued. "The longer it goes, the more risks there are. CPS won't wait forever." I hung up and collapsed onto the kitchen floor. It was the first time in my life I felt completely trapped, no way out, no one to call for help, no option that didn't lead to loss. If I signed the papers, I would lose the condo, lose my grandmother's legacy, lose my last foundation. But Miles would still be with me. If I didn't sign, I could lose everything, my job, my reputation, my freedom, and my son. That choice wasn't a choice. It was a sentence disguised as a decision. Some nights I sat in a pitch-dark bathroom, cold water running from the shower, and wondered, what if I disappeared? The thought came fast and quiet, like a dangerous whisper. I scared myself for thinking it. I was so afraid that I held Miles tight while he slept, as if the moment I let go, I would fall into a deep abyss. I didn't want to die. I just wanted the fear to end. Once, I pulled the condo documents out of the drawer. I laid them on the kitchen table. I stared at the blank space where my signature would go. I picked up the pen, then set it down again. My hand shook uncontrollably. I was so close. Close enough that one more threat, one more message, and I would sign. I began preparing myself for it. I tried to convince myself the house was only material, that my son mattered more, that this sacrifice was what a mother was supposed to do. But deep inside, a small voice refused to be quiet. It whispered that if I signed, they wouldn't stop. That once I bowed my head once, they would demand more. That this fear wouldn't end, it would only change shape. I lived inside that conflict every day, between the instinct to protect my child and the fear of losing myself. And the most terrifying part wasn't that they threatened me. The most terrifying part was, I started to believe I deserved it, that maybe I really was weak, that maybe silence and endurance were my fate. That was my lowest point, not when I was the poorest, not when I was threatened the most, but when I almost accepted that I no longer had the right to choose. I didn't know that just a few hours later, a meeting at the station, the meeting I had tried to avoid, would change everything. If you've ever felt trapped, like there's no way out, please keep listening. Don't forget to subscribe to follow the story all the way to the end. And comment to tell me which city or country you're watching from. Your presence here means so much. When my father said he would end all of this, my first reaction wasn't relief. It was fear. Not fear of Loretta, not fear of Darnell, but fear of hope. Because when you've lived in darkness for too long, sudden light can confuse you. I had gotten used to telling myself I had no choices left, that enduring was the only way to protect my child. And now, when my father said he could change the situation, part of me didn't dare believe him. "Do you mean it?" I asked again, my voice so low it was almost a whisper. "You don't understand how dangerous they are. They have people. They aren't afraid of the law. They already had you attacked once." My father looked at me for a long time. His gaze wasn't impulsive or angry. It was calm, clear, and carried the depth of someone who had seen far more than I could imagine. "Amara," he said slowly, "I understand they're dangerous, but they're not the most dangerous kind I've ever faced." I stayed quiet. "I'm not bragging," he continued. "I just need you to understand one thing. I don't act on emotion. If I say I'll do it, it's because I've weighed every risk." He told me not details, but the nature of the work he used to do. 20 years in the military. Intelligence. Watching people. Gathering information. Building files. Waiting for the right moment. Not moving until everything was certain. "Everything they're doing," he said, "leaves traces. The person who thinks they're the smartest is usually the one who exposes the most." I looked down at my hands. They were still trembling, but not as violently as before. "So, what do I have to do?" I asked. My father took a deep breath. "You have to keep doing what you've been doing." That answer made my chest tighten. "Keep enduring?" I asked. "Keep acting," he corrected. "You're not a victim anymore, Amara, but they have to believe you're still a victim." He explained it very clearly. I couldn't change my attitude. I couldn't resist. I couldn't look stronger. I couldn't say anything that might make them suspicious. I still had to hand over money. Still had to bow my head. Still had to look afraid. "That's critical," he emphasized. "If they feel they're losing control, they'll erase evidence, change tactics, or disappear. And then, we lose everything." My throat went dry as I listened. "How long?" I asked. "A few weeks," he said. "Maybe a month. During that time, I won't contact you in the usual way. I'll install a secure messaging app for you. Messages self-delete. No traces. Darnell won't find anything, even if he checks your phone." It sounded logical, methodical, but emotions aren't logical at all. "I'm scared," I admitted. "I'm scared I won't survive another month." My father put his hand on my shoulder. "You survived 2 months. Not because you're weak, but because you're strong. You just don't realize it." I turned to look at Miles. He was sitting there, playing with a cookie that had crumbled into pieces, mumbling to himself. "Hello, I'm delighted to assist you with our voice services. Choose a voice that resonates with you, and let's begin our creative audio journey together." Someone was standing with me, not to pity me, but to fight beside me. "Okay," I said. "I'll do it." My father gave a faint smile. "Good, But remember one thing. What is it? What you're doing isn't cowardice, he said. It's strategy, and the best strategy is the one that makes your opponent believe they've won until the very last minute. We left the cafe not long after. My father hugged me tightly, then bent down and kissed Miles on the forehead. "I'm always here," he whispered. "Even when you can't see me." I held my son's hand and walked down into the station. Everything around me looked the same, the crowd, the announcements, the sound of trains, but inside me, something had changed. For the first time in 2 months, I didn't only feel afraid. I felt a hope. If you're listening and you feel a small spark of light in your heart, please stay. Don't forget to subscribe to follow this journey all the way to the end. And comment to tell me which city or country you're watching from. I truly want to know where you are as you listen. The days after that moved so slowly it was suffocating. I did exactly what my father told me. I didn't change anything. I didn't look stronger. I didn't show resistance. I still bowed my head to Loretta, still replied to texts with short answers, still handed over money on schedule. If anything was different, it was a difference only I knew. I wasn't completely hopeless anymore, but that didn't make anything easier. If anything, having to keep playing the role of a woman whose spirit had been broken hurt even more than before, because now I knew I was being insulted. I knew I didn't deserve it, and I still had to swallow it. My father installed the secure messaging app that very night. He walked me through every step carefully. Messages would delete themselves. No history. No notifications. One wrong move could leave a trace. You have to be more careful than ever, he said. Darnell is watching you. And he was. Darnell watched me more than before. He checked my phone more often, asked who he'd talked to, read every text, scrolled through every call. Once, he stared at me and asked, "You seem calmer lately. You don't cry anymore." My heart jumped. "I'm tired," I said, forcing my voice to stay even. "I've accepted it." That answer pleased him. I saw it clearly in his eyes. To them, my silence was victory. Loretta grew even more confident. She called just to remind me to know my place. She spoke about the condo as if it already belonged to her. She discussed with me ordered me when I would sign, where I would meet the lawyer. "If you stay obedient like this, everything will be smooth," she said. "I always knew you were smart." I hung up, my hands drenched in sweat. Meanwhile, my father worked non-stop. He didn't tell me details. He only sent short messages through the secure app. Collecting. They talk a lot. "You're doing great." Each message was like a small peg holding me back from falling. But waiting was still a punishment. Every morning I woke up, I didn't know what new blow would come that day. A threatening text? A sudden call? Or another accident for my father? Sometimes the fear came back so strongly I had to lock myself in the bathroom, press my back to the wall, and breathe deeply so I wouldn't cry. I hated that feeling. Hated having to pretend I was weak. Hated the way Loretta looked at me like a winner. Hated Darnell walking around the house like he held the power of life and death. But I remembered my father's words. They have to believe you've collapsed, and they truly believed it. One night, Loretta called Darnell while I was right there. She didn't mind speaking loudly. "She's been broken," she said. "Shell sign. It's just a matter of time." I stood in the kitchen with my back turned, my hands gripping the edge of the counter until my knuckles went white. The days passed like walking a tightrope. My father messaged that he had what he needed, that Loretta and her brother talked a lot, that they were getting careless because they believed they'd already won, that their arrogance would be the thing that killed them. I didn't ask more. I didn't want to know. Knowing too much could make me slip. My only job was to reveal nothing. One night, I almost ruined everything. Loretta called me close to midnight. Her voice was harsher than usual. "I heard your father has been discharged from the hospital," she said. "You're not planning to do anything stupid, are you?" My heart raced. My father had warned me not to react. "No," I said. "Hez tired. I haven't talked to him much." "Remember," Loretta lowered her voice, "your family is still in my hands." I ended the call, shaking so hard I couldn't stand. I went into Milas' room, sat down beside his bed, and watched him sleep. I thought about how if I slipped one wrong sentence, one strange look, everything would collapse. That's when I understood. This wasn't endurance anymore. This was psychological warfare, and every day that passed without me being exposed was a day I was winning. Finally, a message from my father appeared on the screen. Almost done. Just 4 words. But I had to sit down because my legs couldn't hold me. Almost done. I didn't know exactly when. I didn't know how. But I knew one thing. This game was about to reach its end. And Loretta, the woman who always believed she controlled everything, had no idea she was walking step by step into her own trap. If you're holding your breath through every moment of this story, stay until the end. Don't forget to subscribe to follow the climax that's coming. And comment to tell me which city or country you're watching from. Your presence here gives me so much strength. The day Loretta chose to end everything came faster than I expected. That morning, I woke up with a strange feeling, not exactly fear, not relief either, but a numb tension, as if my body had burned through all its energy worrying and now could only wait. I wore the oldest coat I had. No makeup, no jewelry. I wanted to look exactly like the woman they believed I had become. Tired, resigned, ready to sign anything just to be left alone. Darnell drove me. The whole way, he didn't say a word. His hand gripped the steering wheel tightly. I didn't know what he was thinking. Maybe relief, maybe excitement. Or maybe he was simply following his mother's orders like always. The lawyer's office was on the 2nd floor of an old building. Narrow stairs, pale fluorescent lights. Every step I took up felt heavy, like I was wearing stones. Loretta was already there. She wore a neat outfit, hair perfectly styled, makeup carefully done. Beside her stood a large man with a shaved head, tattooed wrists. He leaned against the wall with his arms crossed, eyes cold. Finally, Loretta said, a hint of satisfaction in her voice, "I knew you wouldn't disappoint me." I lowered my head and didn't answer. "This is Solomon." She pointed to the man beside her. "He'll be here to assist, in case you change your mind." My skin went cold, but I said nothing. It'd been told clearly, stay quiet. The lawyer invited us inside. A small, tidy office, the smell of paper and printer ink, certificates framed on the wall, a security camera mounted in the corner of the ceiling, silently recording everything. The lawyer sat down and opened the file. "Well, do this quickly," Loretta said, pushing. "My daughter is tired." The lawyer looked up. "I need to confirm one more time. Amara Hayes, you are the legal owner of this condo, correct?" I nodded. "And you want to transfer ownership to your husband, Darnell Jenkins?" I stayed silent for a beat, then answered softly, "Yes." Loretta smiled. The man named Solomon took one step forward, standing closer. I could feel the pressure of his presence, like a shadow pressing down on my shoulders. "This decision is completely voluntary?" the lawyer asked. "There is no coercion or threat involved?" I stared at my hands. They were trembling truly. "She already said it's voluntary." Loretta cut in. "Our family has discussed it thoroughly." The lawyer looked straight at Loretta. "I'm asking my client." The air tightened immediately. I took a deep breath. "I'm doing it voluntarily." Solomon cleared his throat, one deliberate cough. Like a reminder, the lawyer wrote something down, then slid the stack of papers toward me. "This is the transfer agreement. Sign here, here, and here." The pen in my hand felt as heavy as lead. I signed my name on the first line, then the second. Each stroke felt like it was cutting into my skin. When I reached the last line, my hand stopped. "What are you doing?" Loretta snapped. "Sign it." I lifted my head. My tears dropped onto the paper, spreading into blurred stains. "I am not sure," I said, my voice breaking. "I need more time." Loretta shot to her feet. "Time?" she shouted. "Are you kidding me? After everything I've done for you?" She stepped closer and grabbed my wrist. Her grip was so tight it shot pain through me. "Sign. Right. Now." "Mom, please release my client's arm," the lawyer said loudly, standing up. "You don't understand," Loretta snarled. "If she doesn't sign, I'll call CPS. I'll send that video. I'll make sure she never gets to raise her child again." The room went completely silent. The lawyer turned to me, his eyes sharp. "Is that what she's threatening you with, Amara?" I hadn't even answered when the door swung open. Police. 3 men in plain clothes walked in, followed by 2 uniformed officers. The man in front pulled out his badge. "Loretta Jenkins," he said. "You are under arrest for extortion, threats, and coercion to force a civil transaction." Loretta's face went white. "What?" she screamed. "What kind of dirty game is this?" The man named Solomon turned as if to run, but he was immediately restrained and handcuffed behind his back. "We have recordings of your threats," the officer continued. "We have evidence of forged documents. We have witnesses. And we just witnessed coercion on the spot." Loretta spun toward me, panic in her eyes. "Amara, say something. Say you're doing this voluntarily." "Darnell, what are you standing there for?" Darnell stood still. Then he slowly lifted his head. "I told them everything, Mom," he said quietly. "I'm tired." Loretta stumbled back a step, as if she'd been slapped across the face. "You betrayed me?" "No," Darnell answered. "I betrayed my wife first, and I don't want to keep doing it." Loretta was handcuffed. She struggled, screamed, called my name, but no one listened anymore. As they led them out, I sank into the chair. My whole body was shaking, not from fear, but because everything I had been holding in for 2 months was finally being released. The lawyer placed a hand on my shoulder. "You're safe now." Outside the window, I saw my father standing across the street. He didn't come in. He only gave a small nod. And I understood. It was over. If you feel your heart lighten in this moment, please stay until the end of the story. Don't forget to subscribe to follow the journey after the storm. And comment to tell me which city or country you're watching from. I truly appreciate your presence here. The days that followed felt like a long rain that had just stopped. The thunder was gone, but the sky was still gray, and the ground was still wet. I walked carefully, relieved and yet disoriented, as if I wasn't used to not having to look over my shoulder with every step. I went to the police station to give my statement, then again. I told everything from the beginning, in such detail that even I was surprised I remembered it so clearly. The texts, the calls, the threats, the edited video, the forged financial reports. Every time I repeated it, my heart still tightened, but the fear had changed shape. It no longer crushed me, it was just a memory. My father was always there. He sat in the hallway, reading the newspaper, waiting until I finished. Sometimes he looked up and nodded, as if to say, "You're doing very well." Darnell came too. No more arrogance, no more control. He lowered his head, answered the investigator's questions, admitted his role in taking my money, controlling my phone, pressuring me to sign. I didn't look at him. Not because I hated him, but because I didn't have the energy for that anymore. A week later, my company called me in. I had prepared myself for the worst. I thought I would have to explain, defend myself, ask for more time. But when I walked into the meeting room, I saw the HR director, the department head, and the company's lawyer all waiting. "Amara," they said. "We've reviewed the entire investigation file." I clenched my hands. "We're sorry," the director continued, "for not realizing sooner that you were being extorted. Those documents are clearly forged." I froze. "Your record has been fully restored," he said. "And not only that, we want to compensate you for what you've been through." I walked out of that meeting with a temporary promotion decision, a compensation payment for emotional harm, and a promise of a salary adjustment in the next review cycle. I stood in the elevator, looked at my reflection in the metal mirror, and for the first time in a long time, I didn't look small anymore. I filed for divorce the following week. Darnell didn't fight it. He signed everything, accepted the financial terms and visitation arrangements. I didn't ask for much. I only asked for boundaries. Clear. Not blurred. Not negotiable. "You can see Miles on weekends," I said, "but not your mother. No control. No interference." He nodded. "I understand." I didn't know if he truly understood. But that was no longer my responsibility. I moved. The new apartment was smaller than my grandmother's condo, but bright, clean, and quiet. It had a large window facing a row of trees. It had a separate room for Miles, where I put colorful stickers on the wall and set a small bed by the window. On the first night there, I lay listening to the wind moving through the leaves and realized my heart wasn't pounding anymore. Miles liked his new room. He ran around giggling, asking if this would be our home forever. Our home is wherever Mom is, I told him. Wherever we are, we'll be okay. My father visited often. He brought food, fixed a few things around the place, installed extra locks. Not because I needed him to, but because he wanted me to feel safe. Now you don't have to be afraid anymore, he said. But being careful is never too much. I started sleeping better. The nightmares became less frequent. I stopped flinching every time my phone buzzed. I began buying small things for myself again. A new pair of shoes, a warm coat, a bouquet of flowers for the kitchen table. Simple things I once believed I didn't deserve. My grandmother's condo was still in my name. I decided to rent it out. Not because of the money though, the rent did help me breathe, but because I wanted to keep it as part of my family, not as a trophy taken from fear. Life didn't become perfect overnight. There were days I was still tired. Moments when I wondered if I could ever trust anyone again. But every morning I woke up, watched Miles eat breakfast, listened to him talk about school. I knew I had done the right thing. I protected my child. And I protected myself. One afternoon, when I picked Miles up from school, he held my hand and asked, "Mom, are you still sad?" I paused. "No," I smiled. "I'm okay now." And it was true. If you believe that after the storm, life can still be rebuilt little by little, stay with me. Don't forget to subscribe to keep following healing, powerful stories like this. And comment to tell me which city or country you're watching from. Your presence here is truly precious. I used to think that once Loretta was handcuffed and taken away, everything would end immediately. That fear would disappear after one night. But the truth is, some wounds don't bleed. They sit deep inside, and they take time to heal. In the first months after the trial, I lived very carefully. Not afraid like before, but still cautious. Like someone who has been in a dark room too long at first, the light makes you squint. I learned to trust quiet again. Learned to trust that a day without threats was normal, not preparation for a new storm. My father was still there, silent and steady like a wall. He didn't ask much. He didn't bring up the past. He just played with Miles, repaired the balcony railing, brewed tea whenever he came by. His presence wasn't loud, but it was enough to let me know I was safe. Darnell started seeing Miles every weekend, exactly as agreed. At first, I asked my father to be present. I needed to see it. To be sure. Darnell was awkward, clumsy, but he tried. He listened more than he spoke. I didn't forgive him, but I didn't stop him from being a father. Miles didn't deserve to pay for adults' mistakes. Life slowly settled into a new path. I received an official promotion. My salary nearly doubled. I bought a small car, not fancy, but enough to take my son to school, to the park, out on weekends. I moved to a larger apartment with more light. Every morning, sunlight filled the kitchen. And I realized I no longer began my day with worry. My grandmother's condo was still there. I kept it, rented it out. Each time I received the rent, I didn't feel victory, and I didn't feel bitterness. I only felt secure, as if my grandmother was still quietly protecting me in her own way. A year passed like that. Then one evening, while I was folding Mila's clothes, my phone buzzed. An unknown number. "Amara Hayes?" a man's voice asked. "I'm the attorney representing Loretta Jenkins." My hand froze. "She wants to meet you," he said. "In a neutral place, with attorneys present. She wants to apologize." I ended the call without answering right away. My heart didn't race. My hands didn't shake. There was only a strange feeling like an old door being tapped, even though I had left that room long ago. I told my father that night. "The decision is yours," he said. "But remember one thing. You don't owe her anything." I thought about it for 3 days. In the end, I agreed. Not because of her, but because of me. The meeting took place at the same cafe near the station, the place where I had told my father everything a year before. Loretta walked in with her lawyer. She had aged a lot. Thin shoulders, a hunched back, eyes no longer sharp. She was no longer the woman who made me tremble in the dark. "Amara," she said softly, "I'm sorry." I looked at her for a long time, not angry, not pitying. "I don't forgive you," I said. "But I'm not carrying you with me anymore," she cried. "I didn't. I'm letting you go," I continued. "Not for you, for me." That was the last time I ever saw Loretta Jenkins. 3 months later, she died of a heart attack. Her lawyer sent me a letter she had left behind. In it, she admitted her wrongdoing, asked me to give Darnell a chance to be a father, and wrote that she had destroyed her own family because of greed. I read the letter in silence. Then I folded it. No hatred, no relief, just an ending. 2 years later, I stood in a new kitchen, spacious and full of sunlight. Miles was older, now taller, brighter, happy. He did well in school, loved chess, and was always proud to tell his friends that his grandpa taught him how to think a few steps ahead. My father lived nearby. He came by almost every day. We ate dinner together, talked about ordinary things, weather, work, school, things I once thought I would never have again. One afternoon, as the three of us walked in the park, Miles ran ahead and pointed at a big tree. "I want to grow up strong like that tree," he said. I looked at my son, then at my father. "You did it," my father said softly. "You didn't give up." I smiled. I understood that happiness isn't never having suffered. It's having gone through suffering and not letting it define you. I was no longer the woman trembling at the train station years ago. I was a mother, a daughter, a free person. And if you're listening to this story somewhere in the world, maybe in a small room, maybe late at night, I want you to know one thing. There is always a way out, even if you can't see it yet. Thank you for staying until the end of this story. If it touched your heart, please subscribe to Walk With Me every day. And don't forget to comment and tell me which city or country you're watching from. I truly want to know where you are as you listen.